Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to A Rebel Without Applause, coming to you on one side of this digital conversation from my little nutshell of infinite space right here in the wood of the holly, and then across two continents and one ocean. The other half of this digital conversation is coming to me in the dead center capital of Germany. And with me today is a jazz giant. Indeed, he is a friend of mine. I met him some years back at my happy, holy jazz place. That's the World Stage down in Leimert Park. But he makes a life across the pond and two continents in Berlin. And he's had a tremendous career as a jazz musician touring Europe and various configurations of his music, and he's living that expat life, and he's here with me today. I wanted to extend a Grüß Gott und eine freundliche Willkommen nach meiner Freund in Berlin. Willkommen nach meiner Pod, Fuasi Abdul Khaliq. Wie geht's? How are you?
Vielen Dank. I'm doing good, man. Thank you. And thanks for having me. This is wonderful to be on a pod. This is the first podcast I've ever been on. So this is my maiden voyage.
Your maiden voyage. Okay. Well, I know Herbie Hancock would be appreciative of your maiden voyage. It's so cool to see you. And just as a heads up to the folks, I just bumped into Fuasi. He was back in LA and he did a concert at the World Stage, and he kindly showed up at the jam session, and I had a chance to see him again. We first met years ago at the World Stage when it was in its older location across the street in Leimert Park. And then I had an opportunity to go and see you in Berlin. And, it was really thrilling to see you and also to get some intel for the jam sessions. And the one thing I want to say is the thing that blew me away with the jam sessions in Berlin as opposed to LA, at the World Stage. The World Stage is wonderful. I'm surrounded by just a bunch of great guys, all of whom you know, and it's the biggest welcome wagon, and it's been my teacher for over a decade. But it is conspicuously lacking in the one thing that there's so much of in Berlin, and that is an interested audience.
Yeah.
And I just remember getting on stage there to go, oh my God, there's people that actually give a shit. They're here. It's filled. Oh my God.
It was packed that night. I remember.
Yeah. And I just felt like that's one of the tragedies of our culture, is that in the United States, there's just this disinterest, and people struggle their whole lives for the artistry that you have. And here in America, I feel like to a certain extent, it's largely ignored.
It is. And I found that also while I was there. And that's why when I first got to Europe and to Berlin, that's why I was like so flabbergasted in a sense, because it was like people are really into you. They're into your art. They want to know more about what you've been doing, and they appreciate you as a jazz musician. And you're on such a much higher level here. I'm turning myself around here than back in the States. Then that it's really remarkable that this happens in the European consciousness. They're really into art. They're really into and appreciating art as it is for the sake of art. Where in America, they kind of, a musician's dime a dozen, they used to say, and they don't really give a lot of attention and energy for the musicians over there. And that was kind of disappointing, because you never felt appreciated. You always felt that you were on some other lower rung of the ladder, and you're not to be dealt with. Just another jazz musician. Okay, why don't you get a real job?
Yeah, and that's we talk about some of the tragedies in the jazz world with addiction and people that didn't survive very long. And I feel like what you just described is part of it. The fact that these people, these artists, many of whom are the people I hang out with at the World Stage, have, their skills are as refined as a brain surgeon's, and yet they're invisible. And I think that wears on your soul and on your spirit.
It does. I think so too. It wears on your psyche, and sometimes you feel you're not worthful. You're not, you work hard, you work years and years to get the craft up, and nobody really cares. It gives a shit, and so you find yourself in limbo. And yeah, you can also turn, because of that, you turn to some other outside attention or substances or something you can do, and a lot of cats did that and they just went off the deep end.
Right. I think the coin of the realm where I sit under the Hollywood sign is celebrity. You could know one chord if you're famous. He's on TV. Oh my God.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Coin of the realm is celebrity and hits and likes and all the things associated with that. And of course, that's one of the tragedies of our country. That's why we have the person we have sitting in the White House.
There you go.
47 with 34, 47th presidents with 34 felonies, and it should have been more. By that, I mean the PVP, Putin's vice president. Right. So that's really, in a certain way, kind of like the most crass expression of that. And talk about when you first, how you got to Berlin and how that feeling just hit you and the circumstances around that.
Yeah, I was living in Atlanta, Georgia. I moved from LA right in 1986, and I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, because I was involved with a group of people. And at that time it was a renaissance for a lot of Black folks going back to the South,
right,
to try to gain some land and try to settle roots there, get back to where we started and where we built the country up from. And right. So we thought there was a consciousness going back at that time that to go back, try to get some land, hold on to it, work it, and then hopefully you by attrition you would be able to take over enough territory that you could call your own, and a very, very large community, like a semi-state, so to speak. Anyway, that went on for about 6 years, and at the end of the 6th year, I kind of the club thing dried up in Atlanta. There was no more work for musicians. I was going around mowing lawns in these big estates. If you've been to Atlanta, these houses got really big yards. Right. So I was doing this for a living, and in between I was teaching, and sometimes I was playing from time to time. Anyway, we were doing a big band show in Atlanta at one of the clubs, and this guy came who was turned out he was a very famous bass player. His name was Cerrone. We met, we talked, and he told me that he's living in Berlin. And I said, "Yeah, that's great, man. What you doing over there?" And he says, "Well, I got a stipendium or a stipend. There was a program over there called the Berliner Künstler Program, and they were giving money away for composers, and they give applications out throughout the world. And he got this application, and it's a 2-year stint. So he stayed for 2 years, and the thing he said, man, they give you get 2,000 D-Mark a month. They give you a free apartment and all the writing materials that you want. All you got to do is just sit there and write for 2 years. Do it, I said, man, that sounds great. To get there, I had to sell the car. I had to not pay rent for 3 months. Anyway, while I was there and I had the interview, I took it, and one person took me to a club there. It was called the Blues Cafe. And there was this one lone guitar player playing on stage, and he was doing the jam session. But I was the only one there, so I sat in with him. And he goes, man, you sounding great. Do you think you can do a gig with my band tomorrow? We have a little small Berlin festival. Can you play with our group? I said, yeah, sure. It's paying $100. I said, wow, okay, great. Because I used to getting 20 and 30 bucks. So I played there, and another guy saw me that day. He said, hey, man, you sounding great. He said, hey, man, can you come tomorrow night and play with my band? I'm going to this other club. And I said, okay. And it pays $100. I said, okay, cool. All right. 2 days, my third day there, but the second and third day, I got 2 gigs. And I'm making $200 where, that didn't ever happen back in the States. I get to there, I do the gig. This really nice German guy comes up to me and he says, hey, you think you might want to stay in Berlin? And it took 3 to 6 months, they said, to find an apartment. That's what everybody was telling me, because the wall had just come down. Everybody from all the East Bloc countries have come into Berlin, and it takes some time to find a space. He says, no, I might know how to do something. So here's my number. And I talked over my wife. I said, if we go back, we have nothing. We got nowhere to live. We got no transportation, and nothing's happening. Let's see what this guy's talking about. So he invited us to this little bachelor's apartment, really small bachelor's apartment. Turned out it was his. He said, you can have this thing for 300 D-Mark a month. And I'm like, oh man, that's great, but where am I find money? I can, I just got here. I'm not, oh no, no, no. You don't have to pay anything. You just have to teach me saxophone lessons. And that's when I said, I looked at my light wife, we talked about it. I said, I think I'm going to stay and you go back and get the kids. I tore my return ticket up. I didn't go back. She went back, got the kids, and came back a month later. In the meantime, I was beginning to get more and more gigs. Then I was asked to become a teacher at one of the music schules. And I was like, boom, right away I had 15 students. And because of that, I was able to have a work visa. I was able to get full coverage on insurance. And this is all in the first month. Doors were just flying open when I took this leap of faith, so to speak, to just go there. Then 2 weeks later, I got called by the American International School called John F. Kennedy School. And they asked me to come over there and teach the clarinet, flute, and saxophone to their band members. And so things started moving like this. And then slowly, the rest is almost history because I haven't looked back, and it's been going like this ever since.
It's such a beautiful story. It's so ironic, too, because in the 30s, there was a whole generation of geniuses from Berlin who found a home in Los Angeles, whether it was Thomas Mann or Bertolt Brecht or Billy Wilder, many from the movie community, really. Mm-hmm. And, it's at once, to me, a beautiful story, and it's also sad because it's like a whole generation of jazz geniuses came out of the neighborhoods that you grew up in. We're talking about Central Avenue, whether it's Charles Mingus, Dexter Gordon, Art Farmer,
Eric Dolphy,
it's a big list.
Big list. A big list.
And they all had to go elsewhere to kind of get the recognition they deserved. And I can only wonder about people that I could never even know existed that never did and went down the drain hole for.
Yes.
It's a tragedy of our culture, because I feel like with jazz, not unlike Shakespeare, you need an educated audience to meet the artist halfway to appreciate it. And,
yes.
In LA, and where they worship the false gods of celebrity, there's very little education, so that there's an audience waiting for jazz musicians. So someone like myself, I don't just have to go to the world stage and pay my $5 to have a creative experience. There's actually some value there to what I do. Not that I'm deserving of it, but, just me or us in general. It's really, the tragedy, one of the tragedies of our country. And, LA had an incredibly vital jazz scene, and I want to talk about growing up in LA in the sort of 60s and 70s of some fervent years. There was a lot going on in the neighborhoods that you grew up on, and there was very little going on in the neighborhoods I grew up in the Valley.
In the Valley, huh?
Yeah, I'm in the WPL, white people land. I was restless there. I went to Berkeley. I said, something's got to go on. I can't take it here in Tarzana. I'm bored out of my mind. I want some fervency. And, I can even remember as a little kid, 1967, of course, you have this Watts. I hate the word riot because it infers that Black people just spontaneously combusted when the temperature got too hot. When in fact it was a serious rebellion against brutality and housing issues. I mean, it just goes back. It's quite deep. So I'm just going to use the word rebellion. I don't like the word riot because it just means it just went crazy. I don't get it. What happened? We got hot. They went crazy. No, that's
not how they went.
That's not how it went. And I remember wondering as a little boy, like, why? What is that? And I think that started me on a kind of, I didn't even know, but a trajectory of interest and curiosity in places beyond
We
You know,
Tarzan.
the WPL, white people
You're
land.
right. You're right.
And it still persists to this day. So you grew up, you know, in
I grew up in South Central on Watts. I went to Jordan High School on 103rd near Alameda.
Mhm.
Uh, I grew up in the neighborhood. It was very interesting at the time, growing up in this time, because the neighborhood where I lived between between Avalon and Central and Imperial and 120th. And this was a interesting neighborhood because there was musicians everywhere. Music was everywhere. All the kids and during these times, because of the schools were always full with instruments, and they were already encouraging children to pick an instrument and try something out. That was a tradition back in those days. And there were so many of us who played, and I started playing at 8, and there were so many of us in that area who always played. I started playing clarinet at 8, and down the street was my private music teacher, Milton Hall, which is he was around with a lot of people and saw a lot of people go through his school, so to speak, his teachings, including Jesse Sharps was one of his students. So I went to Gompers Junior High School. Charles Lloyd was teaching there, but the year I went into the 7th grade, he left to go to New York to work out his stuff, become what he is now today. And there was a guy there named Mr. Donald Dustin, and he was very influential to a lot of us young little Black musicians, because he really opened us up to and turned us on to a lot of things, such as every Saturday we would go to down near USC, and there was always the Philharmonic. The LA Philharmonic was playing free for people, and so he turned us on to that. I never been to it. I didn't even know what orchestra was, and we ever got a chance to see that. He used to drive us up and down to San Francisco and to Berkeley and places to perform in little small classical concerts, because we were all classical musicians at this time and was playing classical. And then we had in town in LA, we would have these competitions between a lot of different schools in the LA City School District, with Fauché and well, I can't remember all the name of the little schools, but we used to go there and do competitions. So he was schooling us and getting us better and better at our instruments, and it was very interesting the tactics that he used to keep us interested. But they all worked, and he had a really, really good band, really great orchestra.
There's Jefferson High School had a very famous teacher going back a little bit before your time too, who he also, I guess, was very influential for a whole generation of jazz.
He was also Horace's mentor.
I forget his name right now.
I'm trying not to forget his name. I should not forget his name, but I'm forgetting a lot of things at this age.
Yeah.
It'll come to me and I'll bring it out.
Yeah,
later.
but he was quite famous, and I think they named the auditorium after him. I think that's the case, and it's just there was this great, like I mentioned to you earlier, I wrote a screenplay about it called Central Avenue, and it's one of my most fervent wishes to someday see that street reimagined in a creative way for the cinema and the world. Because my feeling is, if you don't know about Central Avenue, you really don't know about L.A.
Yeah, it needs something like this. You have to. Yeah, there should be some kind of a movie or a play about this.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some attempts, and Harold Mosley did Devil in a Blue Dress, which sort of, crossed the street a little bit. My script, I have to say, goes right down the scene, from the Dunbar Hotel to all the various places. I'm going to throw out some names to you. Maybe they were influential in L.A. Pharoah Saunders, for example, I'm sure was.
Yeah, he was a big inspiration for me. When I first heard his records, I was in college, just in the 60s. And he's such a spiritual being, and he brought a lot of smiles on my face. I've seen him many, many times, and it was always fun. And we had some kind of, I don't know what we had between us, because every time we saw each other, I know he knew who I was. I mean, I know he recognized me from being around, because even here in Berlin, when he would come to Berlin, I would hang out with him. But at the time, we never we hardly ever spoke. We just kind of looked at each other, and it was like a silent understanding that somehow we were connected, but we weren't really having to talk about it. But his playing was a big inspiration for me, and yeah, lots of stories with Farrell.
Did you have a chance to hear or hang with Billy Higgins?
Oh yeah, yeah. I even sat in with Billy a couple of times at the world stage, and oh man, what a great cat! Really great person, man. He was always smiling, and he was always open, and yeah, he was just a regular cat. Because growing up in that area and hanging out with Horace all these years, it was just another cat to me. And so yeah, I
And
like.
and maybe I think the most high recorded of all the jazz drummers on Blue Note.
At that, yes, he was. He was the most recorded drummer at that time.
Yeah, I mean, and all those albums, those the hard bop albums of Sonny Clark and Hank Mobley and
Hank, yeah, Hank, all these cats, man.
those are and those compositions to me are so beautiful. I mean, they're like the music, it's fast and there's the changes but it's at no expense for beauty. It's still beautiful to me. So I love those records.
Yes. Oh yeah, man.
I'm,
Lee Morgan, all these cats, man.
yeah, I'm still feeling the funk in the deep freeze. What can I say?
Hank Mobley, yeah.
Yeah, this I dig of you, my brother. So all that music is hugely inspirational. Now I notice you've got this Horace Tapscott People's Orchestra organization going on in Berlin, which is I think kind of ironic is that the culture has a way of migrating in any direction. So you're like a little bit of a piper bringing that tradition of music to Berlin. It sounds like.
Yes, in fact, even when we were kids and I was working with Horace always used to talk about we had to spread out and take this word of the orchestra out into the world, and that was 30 years before I left, and then that was like one of my assignments is I'm going to go out and I'm going to advocate and propagate what the orchestra was really about and what it's been doing, and try to bring the music to people that never heard something like this before, and they never heard nothing like this before. And in the beginning, like in the early 2000s, I did the Horace Tapscott tribute or memorial ensemble, and that was the first thing that we were doing. And then lately, in the last 3 years, I don't know if you heard, but because of course you listen to the record. Now I'm doing what we call the Pan-African People's Octet. And I was using, there's a lot of musicians, a lot of guys over here. There's three of us over here that came over almost at the same time, 30-something years ago. And we all grew up in the 70s with Horace. Then I put this band together, and I was able to get all these two guys to come in from Netherlands and from Spain. And I was able to get Michaela Session. Michaela Session is the son of Michael Session, the saxophone player.
Oh yeah, okay.
And Michaela grew up in the orchestra. I mean, he was born in the orchestra, and he is now the new band leader. And we recorded 2 days recording and video on this concert, and from that we made a ALP, which is now in a lot of stores. And
is that Efuru?
The Efuru, yeah.
That's so I have it. It's a great album. It's really cool.
Oh,
yeah, nice. I got it. Yeah, definitely. I really enjoy it. One other project that I was going through your website that really was of interest to me was the tribute to the Harlem Renaissance.
I would do a big Black History Month special, which we would perform music from the 30s and the 40s and the 20s. Cab Calloway, Fletcher Henderson, Duke. And also some big bands or all women big bands at the time were playing their music also. We would try to educate the people here about our music and where it's come from, right. And how long it's been here and who's been involved in it. And so that was a program we did for the whole month of February.
So the Lunsford organization after World War I. Jimmy Lunsford, that really, as I understand it, in the history that I've read, was really like the beginning of exporting this American form this, I like to think of it as freedom music into Europe,
Hmm.
and it caught fire, and this
Yeah,
music starts to,
spread.
spread, and then it kind of comes back. You got like Django and people like that, and it comes back and kind of reinvigorates some of the American music.
Yes, yes, yeah,
It's beautiful.
yeah. The exchange goes back and forth. And then the Sidney Bechet was already here, and he was already blowing up Paris back since the 20s.
Right.
So
And then the great singer, like what's her name? There was, black artists could find a place of relative equality and appreciation that they could not find
and at home. That's
at
right.
home. And I mean, it seems, as you describe your own experience, it's like you just walk through the Brandenburg Gate and now the doors open up for you.
Yeah,
As you
yeah.
described it.
Almost like that. Almost like that. Really.
I'm here. Who would have? The ironies are just so incredible because my grandmother lived in Berlin in the 30s, and that's was there was a prior to Hitler in the 20s. It was there was a vital cabaret scene, and there was
Yes.
a lot of alternative kind of movements in sexuality and music and jazz,
Yes.
and then there was a sad and tragic blowback. So I
Mhm.
feel like you're part of this tradition, and now I feel like we're here in Los Angeles under the yoke of kind of fascist, whatever you want to call it, threat. And the beacon of freedom seems to be shining from Berlin more than it is from here.
Ironic, isn't it? I mean, that was the death trap Berlin, but the ex-Nazi place. So yeah, it's interesting. Berlin has the biggest scene in Germany, and and a lot of guys who come here say it's a bigger scene even in Paris. So, and
Yeah.
Paris has a big scene too.
And on a racial level, did you feel any of the same, I don't know, boundaries or restrictions that you may have felt in America or Los Angeles that you did in Berlin?
No, yes and no. It wasn't. It's not the same thing. I tell people these are not the same white people that you have over in the States. They don't have this kind of relationship per se as the white people in America have had against with blacks. They have a different kind of relationship. I mean, these these European countries are ex-colonialists, and of course they had a lot of things to deal with in Africa. But over in the beginning, there was nothing really so blatant. I mean, people were very curious because when I came, there were many black people here. The only people who were really here that were black that they saw were the army, because when I came, the army was still here and it was still stationed here.
U.S. Army.
The U.S. Army, yes, French Army, the British Army, and the Russians, because they were still hadn't pulled out yet, and they were pulling out when I got here, and so
Did
they
you
only
scare
see.
them out? Did you scare them away? Was it you that they finally decided we don't want any Fauzi's here? We're out.
Get out of town. Yeah, yeah, right, right. No, maybe, but not quite. But they never saw. I mean, it was a thing when I first came here, which I thought was really kind of a racist thing because we would go into the U-Bahn, into the underground train, and just when you walk in, everybody jumps and look. They just start looking at you. They come out their seats and they're leaning over their seats, looking at you at the door coming in because. And I'm like, who the fuck are you looking at? Stop staring at me. But they couldn't. It was like they never. It's that they never. Some people had never seen black man before, and this is what I realized then. So it was more of a curiosity than it was to be um, sending kind of a negative racist energy to me.
Mm-hmm.
And they got used to the curiosity as time goes on because more and more black people started coming here, especially from the continent of Africa, because a lot of Cameroonians have been coming here and a lot of Ghanaians, and there's a lot of intermarriage, and so you have a lot of children that are growing up like this. But in the beginning, when I came, it was very it was touch and go for a moment because I wasn't sure what were they thinking and because I can't speak the language. I couldn't speak the language, and I didn't know what they were thinking. But I found out it was the curiosity. There was an incident early in my early time here that kind of showed me that the people also here also can be very racist. There was a group of old women who were like, they called them at this time is Wilmersdorf Wittas, and they were like, um, all their husbands had died in the war.
Oh, widows, Vitas,
Widows. They're all widows, Witta, and they're all widows, and so, but they're all dressed in black. It was funny. They all dressed in black to let you know that they were ex-Nazi wives, and And I had an incident with one of them who came to us. I was walking the street with my family, and she actually just started shouting, "Rouse nigga from here, Rouse,
get out, get out, get the fuck out,
get the fuck out, get out of here." Yeah. Okay, so that was my only confrontation I ever had, and I'm sure a couple of weeks later she was dead because they were all dying out at that time. So it didn't matter. But it was interesting. When I got here, what I always had the problem is in LA is with the police. And that was one of the reasons I left LA anyway. And even the police were not much better in Atlanta, but it was different to having all black police and having all white folks in your neighborhood. So, but when I got to Berlin, I couldn't even find a policeman. They were nowhere. It was so calm and nothing, and everybody was in such a different kind of headset at that time. This wasn't about beating somebody. You could go on to U-Bahn. You didn't have to even pay money. I mean, it was an honor system. There's a ticket thing there. You pay for the ticket, and then you walk on the train. And if you didn't pay for the ticket and walked on the train, I mean, because you didn't have no money, then nobody was making a big fuss about it. It was really very relaxed. And so if you needed a policeman, or you couldn't find one. And so you never saw them at that time. And things has changed over the last 30 years, and now they're everywhere. They're not like in the States, but they're around. But they're still very relaxed people. It's
So
not like
you got there shortly after the city was, it was geteilt for viele Jahre, divided. And when you got there, it was over. The wall
had just come down.
So the city was undergoing a kind of a reintegration,
a reconstruction, and the whole thing at the same time.
Yeah. And where are you in Berlin? Are you on the
I'm in West Berlin.
So that of course was part of West Germany. Now it's not. My mother was born there. My grandfather worked there. And one of the things that really struck me when I was in Berlin was, and by the way, Berlin isn't necessarily the all of Germany. Berlin is a cosmopolitan city.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect you could go to some of the outlying countryside and not feel nearly as welcome as you are in the big metropolitan city of art and culture. But one of the things that really struck me about Berlin is what they have done in a way that America not only has not done, but now is reversing that, is the recognition of the truth of their history. So, for example, when I was in Berlin, I was just astounded. You could walk down the street, look on the sidewalk, and see a little brass square.
Yeah.
And it said this family was on this date, June 16th, 1943, was taken from their home, and they died August 23rd, 1944 at Auschwitz. And it's just, that's the truth. That's a fact. It's just a fact. It's incontrovertible. It's not to be debated. It's real. And, we in America not only have had trouble coming to face the truth of our history, we're now in a major effort to erase what little recognition there is. And I'm curious, sitting where you're sitting as an American citizen or an expat, and you're looking at what's the rise of PVP, Putin's vice president in America. What's the reaction there? Like, thank God I'm here, or just, what is it? I mean, thank God I'm in Berlin. I'm safe.
Oh, God, yeah, kind of safe. Yeah, in a way, I'm glad that I'm here and not there. I'm sad I'm not there to I don't know, to deal with the struggle. I still have kids over there, and I had
Mhm.
grandkids, great grandkids, brothers and sisters, and I'm sad because I can't get them out, not away from all that.
Yeah.
I'm kind of cool. That I'm glad I'm here in a sense, but it's getting crazy over here too in a lot of different other ways, and but not that crazy. But it's going that direction. I mean, we're all the place has always been threatened by Russia, even during the Cold War. Berlin was going to be the first one that's going to get hit, and
Mhm.
now that Putin has threatened a couple times, uh, yeah, so people here are a little bit nervous, and now they have drones going over the airport, which is stopping the flights going out. I mean, it's really getting a little strange over here. You have not an immigration problem, but you have a lot of immigration here happening. And but yes, I feel a little bit safer. Put it like this: I feel not threatened at the moment. I don't feel like maybe you guys feel over there being under the thumb of this of the orange president. Every day something new is happening where he's trying to divide the people or to crush rights or whatever. So I see this, and everybody, and I'm kind of embarrassed to be an American over here also, because the Germans asked me, said, "What's happening? You're American?" And I had said, "Yeah, I'm American, but I'm embarrassed to say I'm American because this is terrible." And they look at us as they look going this way. They look at us Americans in America as like, why are people letting that happen without making some kind of move against it? They kind of become very passive they think passive. But I know there's a lot of things happening underground, and there's a lot of rumblings going on over there. So you don't know what's going to happen. But the people over here think that, not that they're so weak, but they wonder how in the hell they ask me, how in the hell did you vote this guy in twice? You know, first time was like a fluke, and the second time, that means you guys are really like this. So it is a little bit embarrassing to even say that I'm an expat. I'm an expat.
Well,
But
I've been a comedian and talk about stuff, and generally I could be as critical as I want about anybody, and really not have any fear that anything was really going to happen.
mhm,
Now, honestly, someone could knock on my door and go, "Guess what? Congratulations, Bill! You just won a one-way ticket to Alligator Alcatraz." And
okay,
and I go, "Well, wait a minute. What about habeas corpus? Do you know what that is?" And they go,
yeah,
"Yeah, it was the punk rock band in the '80s, wasn't it?" In other words, I'm doing this now, and some of which has political content, and there's an element of risk that I could never have really in my previous years imagined. And here,
imagine me either. All the stuff I used to say, my goodness, they would take me to jail right away, put me. It's just freedom of speech is gone, man. Seems like this kind of, and they put this fear in you. This is what I see, that they and other people here, they see the Americans are afraid. They're afraid of this guy. This guy's got something, and he's doing it in such a way that we've never had this happen before. So now we're afraid to say something. You're afraid to stand up for something that's right. You're afraid to stand up for Palestine, or they're going to take all your money away from your college, or they're going to, oh man, it's just out to lunch over there.
and I went to a football game the other day. I mean, machine guns across the chest, walking everywhere. The whatever agency they're in, that has a chilling effect just
Oh yeah.
visually on
Oh
the
yeah.
on the streets. But you grew up in L.A. You was Benjamin Pratt, and the Panthers and the cops.
Geronimo Pratt.
Geronimo Pratt. What am I? Geronimo. Benjamin Pratt's an actor. Geronimo Pratt. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. And the police were extremely aggressive. I mean, there was,
Oh man. Oh man. Oh
it,
no, I know.
you
I'm
know,
about it.
yeah. So I don't know how cyclical it is or not. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's pretty hard, man. How are you taking this?
Well, I struggle with it every day. So, on one level, like you said, he was got the presidency, without a majority.
Mhm.
And unlike, we're both old enough to remember Richard Nixon, and his corruption was kind of hidden. The cards are down. He wasn't bragging about his corruption or his dishonesty. Like
Mhm.
Watergate, what? He did that? Oh my God. This guy's corruption in its own way is completely transparent. He's the
Yes.
most honestly dishonest person I've ever seen. It's completely on display. And
Yes.
yet, if the polls are to be believed, the election polls, he won again. So is it really about this imbecile, or is it about the people at large, and false idolatry of, and and to me, at the core of so much of this American problem is racism.
Yeah.
What is really under assault? Well, let's just look. What's under assault is the civil rights progress of the 60s, going back into the 50s. Um, it's, make America great again. What does that mean? It means the 50s. It's pre-Bound v. Board 1950s, where basically all the
Mhm.
prosperity that America enjoyed after the war was by and large enjoyed by white people that
Mhm.
look like me. Um,
Mhm.
and then it even goes back deeper than that. It goes back to Reconstruction and the
Mhm.
14th Amendment and the
Mhm.
13th and 14th and 15th Amendment, and erasing people like Frederick Douglass, as to my view, maybe the greatest American of the 19th century. And
Yeah.
so I, you know, in the Civil War, hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of Americans marched willingly and thrillingly to their death to
Mhm.
defend a few white slave owners, I don't want to say right, ability to enslave, 4 million black people. They went to their death to defend that. And in some way it just doesn't go away. Those people's grandparent children, or the great whatever grandchildren of
Mhm.
those same people. And so these forces,
Yeah.
you can't, it's like trying to kill the last Nazi or the last Hamas. You can't. They're still there. There's this kernel that's indestructible, and it's
Yeah.
just part of the American story. So I'll tell you one of the things that really animated me about my screenplay, because it takes place in the late 40s and early 50s, is that the musicians, the jazz musicians in particular, they were at the point of the spear socially. They were the ones integrating or amalgamating the music unions. And so they were ahead of the times in terms of social justice.
Mhm.
People, the Buddy Collette's and all those people,
Yes. Yes.
they were ahead of the culture, and that's part of what I admired. And I'll just say this too: when you talk about those post-war jazz musicians, black, the Charlie Parrs and the Dizzy and those guys, I felt like, they couldn't rub two sticks together to make a dime. If you didn't know music, they were just invisible people shuffling down the street with these cases in them with horns.
Mhm.
But that music was saying something to me quite powerful. It was like, you don't know me. I'm fucking smarter than you. You couldn't do this if you studied for 50 years. In other words, it was more than just, hey, fast music. It was an expression of like, you don't fucking know me. You don't know what's inside of me. And I feel that, I feel like that's like kind of the fuel of their individualism and their artistry. It's the nuclear fuel that kind of drives that music, and it's
Yes. And also the pain and suffering that they went through, the emotions that they felt going through. This all came out. And this brought this energy, and it's brought this heavy, fast music at the time, which was the same as hard bop and the heavy spiritual stuff that we were playing in the 60s and the 70s. I mean, and with Horace, and we're writing stuff over there, and we're still feeling this pain, and we're bringing this pain out through our music, and you can feel it, man. And that's why we sometimes maybe it's spiritual music or I don't know how you call it, raw music. We just like we let everybody know that through our sounds that how we've been feeling, what we feel. We're not playing that much. I mean, we're also playing beautiful ballads, of course,
of
and
course.
beautiful songs of that sound like flowers or you sunshine and blah blah, this kind of thing. But we're also playing the heavy, dark, aggressive, because this is the way I feel. I feel this pain, and I'm going to play it through my horn, man, because I want to. Cass would tell me when I was growing up in the arc, you play your horn like it's the last day of your life, because it could be the last day of your life. You don't have a chance to sit there and just play doodling. You just got to actually, when you hit the set, or you hit the stage, or you practice, you're really practicing for your life. We're playing. I feel like this all the time. I'm playing to save my life, because if I didn't have this, I would probably be. I don't know where I would be, but I wouldn't be doing anything really, really good, I think. But and a lot of people thought.
I think your life would find value with or without your horn, but I'm glad you found it with your horn. And what I hear is a beautiful story of the pearly gates of opportunity opening up for you in Berlin, and how that is a life-saving event. I don't carry some of the same baggage that you do, because I'm white, I didn't have that, but I do feel, I have empathy for it, and I feel the pain of being invisible for skills that I have, not just in music, but as a comedian and screenwriter and even actor. So that's just powerful for me. And so I so appreciate your story, because that courage and that moment opened the door, and who knows, saved your life,
I believe it did. I really believe it did, because I had to hit a dead end, and I was on my knees every night praying, man, something's got to break. And then when I took this leap of faith, it was really remarkable how the doors all the doors started opening up. I was in the right place at the right time, perhaps, I suppose. So opportunity was just overflowing. So you could really make anything that you want, and that opportunity to have that, with no boundaries, really gets the person to grow. You get a chance to grow in your dreams. You grow in your dreams and what you're looking for.
And we live in a society here where there's very little support for the arts and education and opportunities and grant writing. I mean, and it's drying up now. I don't know if there's anything. And even, my favorite place, the world stage, I mean, they're always
struggling,
scuffling to make it work. And it is an island in and of itself, to me, of
yes,
joy and happiness. I feel so like the Black gift to American culture is so huge, whatever, in so many, first of all, economically, of course,
right.
Yeah, I mean, first world is, why is it first? It's on the back of cotton laborers for the most part.
Right.
You told an interesting story about going back to Atlanta as an effort to reclaim. We'll take the 40 acres. I don't need the mule. You keep the mule. Right. We don't need it now.
Exactly. I want my 40 acres and a tractor.
Yeah, I'll take a tractor. You can have the mule. Matter of fact, you can keep the mule. I'll take a few more acres for the mule. That is really the failure of that, of compensation after the Civil War. It was on the table, and it was sadly, abandoned. Is really the core tragedy of one of the main core tragedies of life after the American Civil War, because land was wealth, coin of the realm, and the fact that there was no compensation, or I always forget the word, when you to make due for past injustices.
Okay.
What's the word? I always forget.
I know the word. I don't know what's wrong with us today, huh?
Yeah, but it's a word we need, by the way. By the way, my mother received it from the German government for loss of her education. She received payment because she was a little girl. So that's part of it, that the German government and the society on a certain level has recognized the truth of its history, whereas in America, we failed, and now it's going in the opposite direction, at least by the federal government, but they're not stopping me. And, I'm going to kind of try and wrap this up, but you asked, what do we do here? Well, the first thing you got to do is stay brave. Be brave. Don't be stupid, but don't be a wimp. This is a moment to be counted and to be brave. And there's very compelling examples of American bravery against, I went to the workshops that James Lawson gave at the Holman Methodist. You're familiar with James Lawson? Was the one who mentored Martin Luther King, trained the young sit-in kids in Nashville in 1960. I wrote another script about that too, called Satyagraha in America, A True Love Story. And that's about the great gift of reimagining Gandhi's work in America, with James Lawson and Martin Luther King and that stuff. So there's, I don't know, just to be brave, and it doesn't mean you have to be violent. You just have to be brave.
Yeah, you have to be brave, stand up to all this, man. Samuel Brown is the mentor of Horace Tapscott, and reparations is the word you were looking for.
Well, Fuasi, I want to just, for the fortunate few that catch up to this conversation, you can find his records on iTunes. They're for purchase, as I did. I bought a Furu, the most recent iteration and expression of Horace Tapscott, who was one of the great troubadours, the People's Orchestra of Los Angeles. And, he's exporting it in Berlin. And
I'm trying my best. I'm trying to get the word spread around as much as I can in Europe.
As you think about Horace, you're not just playing his compositions, you're reimagining the music and carrying on a tradition, I suspect. So when you think of Horace in terms of his place in jazz and music and what you're doing, how would you just describe it for the folks that don't know who he is or was?
I can describe how he was for us, or to me particularly. Horace was he was kind of a savior of our music. He was the guy who had the vision that the way you preserve our music is to perform it, to write, to get it in front of our people, and that's why we used to do all these free concerts all the time at the church for like all these years, 10, 12 years straight at the church. And before that, we were in the South Park. We were doing concerts in South Park, and we were on the back of a flatbed truck driving around Watts and South Central, just bringing the music to the people. And his belief was that the more we know about our music, our sound, our own compositions, and written by people from our community, we would really look around and see all the stuff that we have. We have all these artists. We have not only the musicians that Horace showing, but now we see they got painters over here, and we got these other guys who are doing sculpture. We didn't know that either. We go to Lemert Park and had all these galleries. We didn't know what a gallery was. These guys, he helped open up the door for a lot of young musicians and a lot of young people in particular, and even the people who came to listen, to look for places in the city where we are and creating things all the time.
And that's also includes poets and
poets. I didn't see poetry.
And the literary side, there was the Writers' Workshop.
Writers, yes.
Bud Schulberg, Watts Writers' Workshop. This is all part of this fervent time and place that you were really the beneficiary of in many ways.
Exactly. I was there and I benefited, definitely. And I was very fortunate and lucky to be right under the cat's, I was under him. I was at his house every day for like years. So, I was.
And I'm going to say that I am also the beneficiary of it in a different way. And that's sort of the beauty of culture and art, is people can find identities outside of, whatever they were necessarily born to. So my message to my white friends is go integrate yourself, because guess what? Your life gets just way better.
Good. That's good.
Go integrate your fucking self and you'd be happier. I am for it, to be sure. Fuasi Abdul Khaliq with a Q.
Cool.
Folks, catch up to the music. If you get to Berlin, he's everywhere all the time. You know, he's managed to craft what for me seems like a fantasy life of like gigs all the time. And it's a beautiful example. And thanks for doing the hang.
Thank you for asking me. It really was a pleasure and an experience. My first podcast. I hope I did okay.
You did great. And you know is your story is unique and interesting, and your music is awesome. And you know, I saw you just, I guess it was a few weeks ago, a month or so ago. You know, and the tone and the artistry and the confidence that you can see coming off of you, because you're valued in your society. And I feel like those of us on this side, most of us, me included, lack some of that because I'm invisible. I play on the street in Larchmont a lot. We got my tracks and everything. And people walk by me all the time like I don't exist, like I'm invisible. And I do it because I'd rather practice here and make $30 than do it at home. Yeah. But I also struggle with this sort of sense of invisibility. And it's thrilling to see how that's benefited you in your life.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, folks, thanks for hanging with me and Fuasi. We got a good connection here, internet-wise and otherwise. And Fuasi, stay with me on the other side, but I'm going to bid my audience thank you for coming. Until next time, namaste, shalom, and aloha. By that I mean namashaloha.
Namashaloha.